Section 8 in particular. CPP stands for Community Preservation Partners, and we consider ourselves just that, partners in every sense, partners with nonprofits, housing authorities, other developers, really anybody that you know, to further the mission of preservation of affordable housing. We also consider groups like the CPL, LDC, the residents, the neighborhood, the kind of community at large, and partners in our practice as well as stakeholders. For the preservation of college arms, we are partnering in that sense with a nonprofit called Foundation for Affordable Housing, who we've had several successful partnerships or projects we've done with. CBP is preserved over 15,000 units nationwide. Foundation, I think, is a little over 25,000 units preserved and helped. So they're just wanting to play around with both specialists in the preservation and financing mechanisms to make it all work. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with College Arms, 164 unit multi-family building built in 1969. I went through a LIHTC finance renovation in 2008, I believe. It's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. But there's also a 151 unit Section 8 community. And the LIHTC regulatory agreement from 2008. The existing regulatory agreement restricts 10% of the units to individuals making no more than 60% of their annual income. And that use agreement expires in 2038. So what we are proposing to do is to first off, take advantage of the ability to increase the contract rent in that Section 8 contract. And basically what that means is there's a mechanism by which we can submit a revised both operating budget to HUD and then mark up the rent accordingly to support that budget. What it means is we're basically securing more subsidy from HUD while the tenant portion of the rent, which is 30% of their adjusted income, remains the same. So in other words, we'll be able to secure more rent while not passing that on to the residents. Through that additional rent, which results in and why we're able to underwrite a large mortgage on the property. Typically, these were paired with that's what we're talking about being the tax exempt issuance, which will then do a condo structure be lent to the project through a private lender. Typically, we pair that structure with low cost and tax credits, but right now there's a specific prohibition on tax credit preservation deals in New York State, where the state agency to issue those basically won't do so for this local issue deals. But we were able to make the financing work where through a tax exempt bond issuance, private lender, we're able to acquire the property and finance what equates to about a $78,000 per unit in direct hard costs, which would be about 100,000 units as far as the construction contract per unit for the property. And again, we're able to do no. So this is
still on the old.
Yes, we're talking about the existing building.
Okay.
The current owner of that building, I believe, is trying to subdivide that parcel to build a new building. I don't know particulars about that.
So that's not involved.
That's not
Okay.
not at all involved. I think the only this. Some of the time when that individual seeks his, entitlements, I believe there's a plan where we may share some of the property, but from a logistical standpoint, it's just always ownership. But it really is it's the bond issuance coupled with the Section 8 increase in contract rents, which is really going to allow us to acquire, preserve, meaning maintain the affordability, extend that affordability out to 2088, as well as underwrite the expensive revenue. I think that the key that I want to underscore is, and that's basically by securing additional subsidy, not by passing on additional costs to the residents. The reason that we're moving forward with this quickly, we would love to kind of hold out and hope that the state changes their guidance on allowing a tax rate transaction. But the reality is, the type of contract that we have in place, the budget-based rent contract, we're worried that with the administration there, we won't be able to process these types of things in the future. So we already have our own submission and the expectation and the feedback that we're getting is they're to process that now, but we're not sure that would be possible in the future. So again, new rents coupled with the 513 issue taxes and bonds, as well as the benefits that we're getting from the village, assigning the tax exemption is now to the new ownership is what allows us to underwrite this whole work. So what we have planned is we anticipate to take about 12 to 18 months of construction. But it's a pretty expensive renovation. At least first off, kind of the accessibility upgrades, improved. It includes everything from doors, path of travel for accessibility, converting some units to accessibility, new signage and lighting, things like that. Floor upgrades throughout the whole property, paint throughout the property, interior common area lighting upgrades, security camera access system, key fob access systems. The property is blessed now with a lot of great common community space. There's a community center, library, community center, media center. We'll kind of refinish all those areas. We plan to add some outdoor amenities as well. I think there's kind of underutilized garden bed. I don't think has seen much love in a few years. The plan is that we're going to put an outdoor kitchen in with a pavilion, some benches. We'll put in a playground area, bike racks, dog park. As far as the building envelope, we've kind of replacing the windows, replacing the roof, elevators, a lot of upgrades. The sanitary sewer lines will be repaired. New gas boilers and PTAC, which is the improving systems in the building. So really kind of expansive rehab. The goal of these things is to, really make sure the property is physically viable for the next generation, at least the next 20 plus years.
And that's for all the units you're gonna.
That's building wise thing, but for units in particular, really kind of modernization. So new cabinets, new counters. We'll put in kind of solid state. Portrait range counters, new paint units, bathrooms. We'll get new toilets, plumbing accessories, specialties, meaning towel bars, towels, that kind of thing. All new appliances, energy efficient appliances, refrigerators, oven range hood with fire stops. Talked about same for the kitchen as well, plumbing fixtures, that kind of thing. New lighting throughout and new flooring throughout. So that's how our scope is kind of coming into focus now. The hope is that by next month we're in a position where we can have final bids, numbers on the construction scope and submit building plans to the village. But again, all in, we anticipate it being what we say $78,000 in direct hard cost per unit. With GC fees and permit fees, it'll only be about $100,000 expense.
That's what? 10 million?
Yeah,
more, right?
Yeah, or you being like from approaching contract thing.
Right. And I just curious, how are you gonna do the renovation?
Yeah,
stages or?
Yeah, so
is it like, what's the occupancy now?
they typically have right, there's some but long wait list, a lot of demand. There's a lot of long-term tenants who have been in for 5, 10, 15 years.
But you can do all this while
yes.
they remain in their.
So that's right. So the plan is that we do occupied rehab, tenant place rehab. We anticipate there being a need of 3 to 4 nights out per unit. We do these again.
Yeah.
Good. We'll meet the residents. In fact, meeting the residents for the first time tomorrow. But we'll meet with them kind of early and often, as well as one-on-one as we lead up to the renovation activities. So we'll find out kind of the needs, the particulars, right? We're not going to put somebody 3 miles away that has a school-age child, so we'll do all that coordination. So it is the majority of the work will be done with tenant in place, but each unit, when they have their flooring and their kitchen likely done, will need to be out for a few nights. So we'll work with our management, with all the residents. Give them a quick, I think they're all set.
Sounds like you've done this with
Yeah.
the person.
Depending on, set relocation. But that, I don't want to say exactly like this until this was finalized, that kind of nice, exactly how it goes. But I think what I want to underscore is that, we will, the residents often will cover all the costs associated with any kind of relocation, but that there'll be no permanent displacement. Which we felt apart. So everybody that will leave their unit for a few days, will go back to their unit, they won't be anybody forced to.
Okay,
Um,
and you've filled out your application seeking our partnership and, which we still need to.
yes, so it's been, I believe, a few weeks ago, and the request was for the 501(c)(3) taxes and bonds, the sales tax exemption. And the tax exemption.
And those are through the village.
The CPR.
Yeah, for the LDC, we have the ability to do mortgage tax and the bond issuance. Sales tax generally is done through the housing development fund, but they're not any structure. They have a sales tax.
I've worked on 5 projects similar in New York State. We're working on IDA or similar. Again, usually coupled with tax credits in this case. But we're still able to, and the key is it extend the affordable.
Sounds like. But that's the financing to do construction, but then. On a basis, you said that. The bond means the finance, you said. Rent, so it'd be a rent increase, but that would be. Placed onto the PUD, who's the subsidy.
That's right. So what we say, so. Gets a little tough, right, to grasp. So there's the contract rent is what, we've essentially contract. We've submitted an application to HUD to say, hey, based on these facts, we believe the rent should be set at this amount. Hopefully we get that approved, and they'll issue a 20-year contract with that being the starting rent standard. And then there'll be, kind of, we call it increases every year. Yeah, oh yeah, and they'll let underwrite that.
So with that.
Yes, it's typically all concurrent, so kind of closing, right? There'll be the bond issuance, there'll be the section 8 contract with effect, and the other.
And it would remain at 60.
So 3 years. Yeah, so the currently is restricted until 2038.
Yeah.
With under our new transaction, they'll actually be restricted until 2080.
Okay.
It'd be another 50 years beyond the current term.
JD.
So, question, so we actually, we don't manage our properties, right, Section Foundation's property. We plan on bringing in Win Residential, who is kind of a top tier, manager of the hub. So, we've worked with Win from, I think they're actually based in Boston, but from Boston down to North Carolina and.
Is this somebody new to be taking over from?
That's right, yeah.
Who's doing it now?
Currently, I believe. So we're bringing a professional. But one that's very well versed in affordable Section 8 programs.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Is there any?
Yeah, so there's the existing pilot now. I'm not sure what the expiration date of that is, but we have a request into the village to basically get that assigned and assumed by us and extended for a much longer term, at least 20 years.
We haven't talked about that,
Yeah.
the details yet, but there's a pilot that the village approves under the housing development law. And then the town has its own pilot as well, because you have separate assessing units. So each municipal board has to approve it. Right now, it's set up in 2008, I believe. And I think it runs through 2038 or 2048. I think there's something like 22 years left or something.
Not an LDC issue though, right?
Yeah, that's municipal approval. They'll work together and be linked together in timing. Ultimately, it's up to the board on board to get through that process and that discussion. If that's an assignment of the existing one or a fresh. But
There's one, it's under. On that, you have some flexibility.
All right, so we'll go through Justin,
Says Tarrytown, New York.
that's the address, I think, but it's in the village of City Hall. We have that resolution.
Oh, that's the post office
Yeah,
address?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
this time.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Justin, let me, and then go to Scott, let us know. Will do. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, Justin.
Your month in Colorado partner, we're gonna help guarantee the non-profit just for when you issue these bonds, it just gives you another level of support that there's dollars in place, there's. I don't want to put that in your resume. 'Cause it's- Yeah. It's great. You know, but there's affordable housing, up to. 30,000 units for up. In my backyard, we're digital, so it's. Be able to put this much investment in that. Nobody wrote it. One of them said it, one of them didn't. If you call, I'll call them and you. So. Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah. Yes. It's part of it, right? Okay.
all right, let's go through this agenda real quick, we do have a resolution to accept. These folks' application, it doesn't, this thing. Okay with that?
Yeah.
So,
We mentioned, but exactly that, accepts their application and
no commitment.
starts the process. So we'll have 2 or 3 months with the applicants.
Yeah, okay, so can I get a motion to use the resolution that accepts their application? So. In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes from January 27. Questions, changes, ballots. No, it's at the minutes. Right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Lauren abstains.
Okay.
That. Light expenditure. 12,000. 649.53. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Give a quick update, Dan.
Sure.
Start with a quick update. East parcel. The installation of 100% of the 433 units for the precast wall was completed at the end of last week. Contractor still has a little bit of backfilling and grading, which should be substantially completed around the end of this week. And as well, the demolition of 193 Beekman was initiated and completed last week as well. Additionally, they still have some sorting and parting of some of the debris from the structure. And some regrading around the site to tie everything together. But by the end of this week, the site should be pretty close to the final grading minus the actual road being there and fencing and things like that. Over the next 4 weeks, again, the earthwork will be wrapping up, as well as ancillary work related to the existing and new walls, as well as utilities and curbing should start going in throughout the site. And that is pretty much it for these parcel related items. I have a couple of updates grant wise. We did find out that our last CFA application through the LWRP program for 2024, which was for the multi-purpose field, did not get any grant money assigned to it. So the only grant that has come through so far was the pro housing grant for $400,000. And that's with a $400,000, 50% match, so $800,000 total project. We're still waiting for the incentive proposal from the state. But between the course of March and April, we should have all the grant contract paperwork from the state, and start, needing to consider, how to progress that scope of work. Whether it be very similar to how we did the state park courts and figure out what scope and RFP and go from there. So that'll more details on that as we progress into the spring. Jenny will be here at our next meeting to go over, and I'll circulate her proposal for grant writing services for the next fiscal year.
Yeah, we met with her and had a good meeting and kind of went over what's to be her scope for next year, this coming year. So there's some good things to focus on. And then some. So yeah, when did we decide she'll come in at our next meeting?
We'll do next meeting, have her,
Before.
we'll put her on the agenda for the meeting and probably have a resolution for that contract as well. Or contract extension. One other item, just related to the overall security improvements. I did get a quote from Advanced POS, who manages our CCTV on the East Parcel, to relocate and install several new cameras as the road work is completed. So most of the cameras that we have now are on old wooden poles with the overhead wire running around. As the new, lighting poles and all the underground conduit go in over the coming months, we'll get that stuff, get cameras relocated onto the new poles and orienteds that we maintain full coverage of the site. On that pole.
I'm just curious, how many people have actually looked at the app with the cameras? Anybody?
I tried and I got,
Yeah.
I couldn't get it back. Before the second.
Okay. We need to get that app. I have it sometimes and cameras are all pointed at things that really aren't relevant, so we should probably just get everybody's view. If they're not necessarily looking at the app as to what should be covered.
Sure.
Because all that stuff is on backup too, right? So if we had to reference something.
Yeah, there's part of the servers maintained, I think, 3 months before it.
So this proposal is for any new cameras?
It is maintaining for the most part.
And how many do we have?
Right now, we've got, or at the peak, we had about 22 cameras. A few of those because of construction, like some on.
Okay.
So I think right now we have about 18, but the proposal would have 25 cameras.
Yeah.
This comes from security.
This, I work with the CCTV vendor to. Yep.
So looking at it. Can we talk to Chief White, because this is. weeks more than any other area of the village, and so it kind of seems to me like it might be overflowing a little bit. Especially if we're gonna have that road open, and so theoretically, it would hold the same way as in part of the village. So I don't wanna have this one part of the village covered by a million security cameras when nothing else is. It just seems like a weird off balance from what the rest of the village is. I do think we obviously need something looking at where we're gonna put the DPW trucks and, you know, anything key, but it just seems.
Well, that's my point. We should
Yeah.
just figure out what cameras should
Yeah,
take into account, and
Yeah.
we need a bunch of cameras, but
Yeah.
I do think it makes sense to get everybody's opinion on what should be covered, and I think the chief's a good suggestion. He may have certain areas he'd like our cameras to cover.
Shouldn't we be thinking about locating all of the new infrastructure for the cameras, like into a street box?
Well, currently, all the.
Cause they're the trailer, right?
Correct. And that's,
The trailer we're getting rid of.
well, we're not getting rid of the trailer.
Well.
Eventually, the longer term plan at a certain point was to relocate the servers and things to the future DPW's facility,
Right.
as that would have its own, you know, security system. So yes, there is a need to discuss, you know, in the more near term, right, if we are to get rid of the security trailer and no longer have a need for it. That, you know, those servers and camera equipment does need to be relocated somewhere, preferably on site. You know, and there's.
Yeah, we've already invested in all these cameras, so.
some of them.
Well, we have 22 that. There is not.
There's also cost.
Well, that's part of the, you know, ongoing service contract that we have. It's, I think, it's a 400 a month.
Like, do we cameras that see
In the park. No, it's-
in the farm? How many do you have? Two in all farm run? Yeah, so that's what I'm.
Okay, I suggest this. And back to this, I'm not gonna accept the proposal yet, I think we got some work to do, just make sure we maximize. What's needed, and before we just. Renew this contract, let's make sure. We talk to the chief, Anthony should be involved too, and just. Let's always make sure we've got the right coverage, and not too much coverage.
Is there any increase in ambulance, the infrastructure?
Well, right now, everything is overhead. I mean, it's just a simple
Right.
coaxial power cable. No, there should not be an issue. There's certain numbers of poles would receive a receptacle, so that, you know, it would all basically be wireless cameras. So as long as wherever it's, as long as there's power to the location, that the camera will be mounted, and it should have line of sight to.
So that would be power and what's powering the lights.
Correct.
Okay, good. We'll
Um,
come back on this. Anything else, Dan?
lastly, would just be our next meeting in 2 weeks on the 24th. See if there's any.
And you'll take care of, you'll reach out to Jenny and confirm the attendance.
Yep, let's send that invite out for the meeting and make sure she's able to attend.
All right, anything else from folks? I'm gonna wanna go into an executive session to discuss some legal issues and contract negotiations. But prior to that, business, new business. No,
Session discuss about her.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good.